We'll start the recording now. And so for those of you, if people haven't been able to make it here tonight, you will receive, or if you have been here tonight as well, you're going to get a recording of it. So I would really encourage you to, for the next hour, hour and a bit, to really make yourself comfortable as you can in your body tonight. Feel free. I always say, listen to your own nervous system first. If you need to move around, lie down, that is the beauty of being able to be on Zoom, especially if you're having an uncomfortable day. And so just confirming that you guys are not on video, but we will be on video and screen sharing a slideshow. So that's right, that nobody else is on video tonight, because we'd have a lot of videos happening. Okay, thanks, Janelle. I might go in and toggle that. Great. All right. So the very last thing I'll say is, Joelle, I think I'm going to use the Q&A for questions, because we've got about 75 people here, and I might miss the questions in the chat. So if you do have a question as we go along, there might be a lot of questions. If you can find your way to the Q&A box and just type your question in there, and that way I'll be sure to see it. I can't promise that we will get to all of the questions tonight, but we will be repeating this webinar. So so no fear if we don't happen to get to you tonight. All right. So Dr. Lawrence, do you want to start us off this evening with our weekly webinar?
Just welcome on behalf of the Bill Nelems Pain and Research Center. I think this is a really, really exciting presentation tonight. It's our first one on nutrition. And this is such an often overlooked area, but it is so crucial in terms of chronic pain management that I'm really excited, and I'm hoping that this is going to be part of our regular presentation program, because I think there are so many valuable things for us to learn about the effects that nutrition have on our bodies and on pain per se, and the inflammatory responses of certain foods, etc. So I'm really excited about this presentation. So thank you very much to Joelle for stepping up to the plate here. This is amazing. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, that's great.
Great. Thank you. Okay, let's dive in. Again, we've got Joelle Davidson here, who's a dietitian with Interior Health and also runs a private practice. And this is focused on pain and nutrition. So Joelle, I'm going to just hand it over to you.
Thank you, Madeline. Hello, everyone. I hope that you all can hear me okay. This is the first time that I'm doing a webinar with some interaction with you. So please bear with me and give me some patience as we navigate this together. I have my chat box on one side of my screen and my Q&A on the other. So I'm going to do my best to pay attention to those as we go. As Madeline said, my name is Joelle Davidson. I'm a registered dietitian. I do work for Interior Health in the acute care setting at Kelowna General Hospital, and I run a private practice called Intuition Dietitian Company, where I see clients one-on-one. I see families in the same household of all age ranges, from children up to older adults. So I'm really excited to be here tonight and talk about this topic. I've been chatting with a few of my colleagues in other provinces as well to give you some of the best information that we can tonight. So let's jump into it.
Excellent. And Joelle, probably if there's a question that seems kind of relevant for what you're talking about, you're okay if I
jump in? Yeah.
Jump in. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. So this is a little outline of what we're going to go over tonight. So we're going to start with the relationship between pain and food. We'll talk a little bit about how one affects the other. I will talk about a healthy eating checklist, so a list of 7 things that you can slowly work on to feel better and relieve some of that pain, and some specific things to work on. We'll talk about inflammation in food. That's a pretty hot topic. A lot of people wanted to know about that. So we'll go into a few details about that. I'll provide you with some resources at the end, some places to go for further information, or if you're wanting more one-on-one or specific nutrition counseling where you can seek that out. And then we'll have a question and answer period. Well, I'll do my best to answer anything that I didn't answer throughout the presentation. So feel free to put in a question or put in the chat, and if it's relevant to what we're talking about, I'll answer it then. Otherwise, if it's something specific and a little bit different to what we're discussing, then we'll try and answer that at the end. Okay, so just a quick note about confidentiality. You're all here with us tonight, although we're all in our own spaces. But whatever we talk about here and the questions that come up, if there's anyone specific that's mentioning on the chat, we just want to make sure that we're keeping it private and confidential for everyone's safety. All of your questions are welcome, as I just mentioned. Feel free to put those in as we go. If you could make sure that your mics are muted, which I don't think that's even an option for you to have them on, so we'll pass that one. We'll use the chat room for a few exercises throughout, and then we are going to do some Zoom polls, so you'll have a chance to answer some questions as we go, so stay tuned for that.
Joelle, just a quick comment. If you could just talk a little tiny bit slower.
Oh, for sure.
I know we're going to have a lot to fit in, I know.
I can definitely do that. Okay, so to start with, we're going to talk about the bidirectional relationship between pain and nutrition. So these kind of go hand in hand. So some things that we eat and some of our nutrition can affect the pain that we feel, and sometimes the pain that we have can affect our nutrition. So I want everyone to take a moment and brainstorm how you think that pain can influence nutrition and how nutrition could influence pain. So take a minute to think about that. And then in the chat box, I want you to put in a few ideas that you come up with. So what might be something that you already know about how nutrition can affect your pain levels? Or what might you know about when you're in pain? How does that affect how you're able to eat?
I'm just seeing a really good one. I respond to stress by snacking. Stress / pain, I imagine.
Yeah, so we don't always eat for hunger. Often we eat for other reasons, for emotional reasons, or sometimes for boredom. It's like Rosemary said, her nutrition affects her inflammation. Food can be very comforting. In our culture, or different cultures, but we use food as a way to socialize and to celebrate and to comfort us in sad moments as well and in difficult times. So, again, that food holds a little bit more than just the nutrition that's in it.
I'm just loving all these answers. Just, of course, when you're in pain, you don't feel like cooking, eating.
Yeah, motivation to cook looks like that's coming up quite a bit. Different appetite. These are all great. And these are all from your own lived experiences too, which is important. Certain foods trigger migraines. There are certain foods that nutrition, depending on different, like migraine or irritable bowel syndrome, interstitial cystitis, there's certain foods that can trigger those painful reactions. Yeah, sometimes it's really hard to just make some of the simplest meals and get into the kitchen to make something. Yeah, sometimes we need something that's quick and easy. Having food ready to go is difficult. Okay, so you guys crossed off a lot of the what I was going to bring up as other ideas too. So if we break it down into, let's start with how nutrition can influence our perception of pain. So that's, I think there was a couple mentions of, certain foods you eat help with the inflammation. So our nutrition can, enhance the function of our nervous system and our immune system and our endocrine systems. The choices that we make can change our perception of pain. So as we were mentioning, some of those food triggers. So if we have those triggers that we know will cause a flare or cause a migraine, then that's going to lead to some pain. So we want to make sure we're aware and can limit those food triggers specific to us. skipping meals. So if we don't get the nutrition that we need, that might lead to some inadequate energy, inadequate protein intake. We know that protein is related to how we perceive pain at times and how our pain threshold is. Having enough fluid, so inadequate intake of water and fluids can contribute to headaches and some other, can make the pain sensation stronger. Those are a few of the ways that nutrition can influence pain. If we're not having those anti-inflammatory foods, we're having more inflammatory foods, then that can cause our pain to be worse as well. On the other hand, as a lot of us see in the chat box there, that pain can affect our nutrition. So we have a reduced appetite, we have difficulty cooking, maybe even difficulty getting the food from the grocery store. So going to get it and bring it home is really difficult. Having different digestive systems. So our pain can cause our digestive system to work a little differently, which can cause us to lose that appetite or be unable to eat. Lack of sleep from our chronic pain can really influence our hormones and our dietary choices as well. If we don't get that sleep, we might want something that gives us quick energy, so something with sugar and caffeine. The last one being that pain can really cause that emotional, those other reasons for eating, coping with the pain and eating for, that feeling sad or mad or depressed, all those other kind of emotions that can be elicited from pain. All right. Any questions about that? Is there anything there, Madeline?
Yeah, just a quick question. Is a protein shake helpful when you can't make a meal?
It can
for those
be.
times.
Yep, it can be. I'd say that if there's a few different types, you can buy store-bought ones that have the kind of micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, protein, carbohydrates in them. Sometimes it's easy to make one in your blender at home, to put a little protein powder, a little bit of fruit, maybe some veggies, blend it up. That would be a really good meal substitute that's fairly quick and easy as well.
Right. That's actually a great idea. And yeah, if you feel nauseous, I guess, or you don't feel like cooking.
And sometimes drinking nutrition is a little bit easier because you don't have to chew. There's this whole process of getting the food in, and drinking through a straw can sometimes be a lot easier.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Probably something you're going to get into, but what are the best foods to relieve pain and which ones to avoid?
We will get into that.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. So here is our list of our healthy eating checklist. Oh, sorry, I went too far. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here's our 7 parts of a checklist that can help us on the path of eating for chronic pain. So one is following a regular eating pattern, eating balanced meals, staying hydrated, preparing our meals and snacks as much as possible from whole foods, planning ahead for those flare-ups of pain, relying on other foods rather than sugar and caffeine to give us energy, and making sure we consult our doctor or pharmacist about any vitamins or supplements that we're wanting to take. So we're going to go into each of these in a little detail. So we're going to start with our first poll. I'm just going to give you a chance to read this, and I will work on loading it here. So this is about a regular eating pattern. So I'm going to load the poll here. So which one of these is true? A regular eating pattern is impossible to do with pain.
Are you guys seeing a poll? Do you have a poll up on your screen right now?
Oh, sorry, you're not seeing it? How about now?
Ah, there it is.
There we go.
Great. Okay, there you go.
So our other answers there requires eating 3 times a day and can lead to low energy levels. Those are our 4 options. So which one of these is true about a regular eating pattern? Looks like some answers are coming in. I will share all the answers here in a minute with all of you, share the results.
You can just answer one. Interesting.
Okay, I'll give you another 10 seconds here. Okay, I'm going to end it and I'll show you the results here. Okay, so the one that was picked the most was prevents large dips and peaks in blood sugar, which is the correct answer. But that doesn't mean that these other answers aren't valid for your experience as well. So it looks like a few people think that eating regularly is near impossible when they're in pain. And thinking also that eating 3 times a day is part of a regular eating pattern, which can be true at times. It doesn't have to be exactly 3 times a day. We can eat with a few other times of the day as well, depending on our hunger levels and how often we might be able to manage to eat. Give you one more second to look at that. All right. So following a regular eating pattern and the benefits of that. So one is that regular eating pattern means having consistent meals and snacks. So that means eating every few hours. We want to eat breakfast within about an hour of waking up. We want to be able to have something. If the mornings are difficult, maybe that protein shake that we just talked about before is a good idea. Making a smoothie, something like that. I'll give you some examples here in a couple slides. We want to make sure that we eat regularly without skipping meals. So when we miss a meal time or miss a snack time that if we're used to having, that's when we can have a little bit more of a pain experience, or we're missing out on the good nutrition that we can get from that meal or snack time. We all know that with some of the research that in patients who are living with fibromyalgia or rheumatoid arthritis, that there is a lower amount of energy intake, lower intake of carbohydrates and proteins, and lots of vitamins and minerals such as vitamin A, vitamin E, and vitamin K, folate, and that can be contributed often to missed meals from pain. So we want to do our very best to eat regularly. It gives us with the energy that we need, and as you know from the poll now, it prevents that dip in the blood sugar. So we'll discuss that on the next slide here. So here's a little look at 2 different ways of eating. So you can see the green line, and hopefully you all can see that. The green line, it has a little bit of a hills and valleys. If we look at the dotted lines, the green line stays within that. So the left-hand side of our graph is the blood sugar level, and the bottom is the time. So as we eat, our blood sugar goes up, our body uses that energy and puts it where it needs to go, and our blood sugar comes back down. We eat again, and it goes back up. When we eat irregularly, or when we eat an unbalanced meal, meaning that we might eat only foods that contain carbohydrates, like a big pasta bowl without anything else, we'll see really rapid spikes that might go beyond where we want it to be. And then following that is a really big low. So we come down quite quickly. And that huge change in our blood sugars and our body's response can lead to some uncomfortableness and some increased pain. So having that regular intake with balanced meals keeps us on a nice trajectory.
Joelle, just if I can interrupt, I've had a couple of questions come through. I don't know if this is a good time about intermittent fasting, and how that does it affect chronic pain.
So intermittent fasting can be done in a couple different ways. So I think the ones in the questions here are about the 16 and 8. So for everyone else listening who might not know what intermittent fasting is, it's 16 hours of the day not eating anything, and then 8 hours of the day is when you do eat. So what I would say to that is that it depends on the goal of intermittent fasting. When we look at the research for intermittent fasting and weight loss, it doesn't give us much more of a benefit than overall reducing our calories that we eat. That being said, if eating in that window helps you to reduce your overall intake, then that can be beneficial for weight loss. As far as other markers, there's not a lot of research that supports intermittent fasting for other reasons. My concern would be is if we have only an 8-hour window, and so we're stopping eating and our body is still hungry and we're not honoring our hunger. We want to make sure we are listening to our body and what it's asking us. And the other concern would be not having the opportunity to get a few meals and snacks in that 8-hour window that give us the nutrition we need. So are we getting enough fruits and vegetables and whole grains and fish that give us the nutrition that we really need? So I'd say it can be done. We just want to make sure that we're not missing out on some other pieces that come with it.
That makes sense.
I hope that
Thank you.
that. In that 16-hour window that we're not eating, we're relying on our liver and our muscles to give us the energy. Our body has stored energy there. So if 16 hours is quite a long time, and if we're ignoring a hunger cue to get to that length, then we want to kind of tailor it a little differently to us. Maybe go for 14 hours and 12 hours, something different.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in terms of keeping blood sugar even and keeping yourself in an optimal levels of nutrition.
Yes. Yeah.
When we're under the stress of pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So here's a little sample day that I have prepared. It shows 3 meals and 3 snacks here. This might not be the same for every single person. Some people might only want to have 3 meals and 1 snack a day. You might have your snack after dinner instead of between meals. Might look a little different for you, but this is a sample schedule. So when we wake up in the morning, we drink some water. It's really important for hydration. We'll get to that in a minute. And then we have our breakfast where we have a whole grain food. We have our oatmeal. We make it with some type of milk. It could be cow's milk, a plant-based milk, oat milk. We include some peanut butter because that's got some fats for us. And we include some fruit in our banana. So we've got a few different types of foods at breakfast. Our snack includes yogurt and some berries. Berries are really high in antioxidants. And then we have our lunch, which is a whole wheat wrap with some canned salmon and some veggies. Again, all foods that are going to give us a lot of good nutrition, very nutrient dense. Our afternoon snack is some hummus with carrots, maybe some cucumber, other veggies that you might have. And then dinner, a bean chili. So having some plant-based proteins, having that whole grain with that brown rice. So this is a little overview and a little sample of what a day might be like that really gives us that nutrient dense foods. We see that at our meals and snacks that we have vegetables and fruits at every meal and snack, and we're eating regularly.
Okay. Yeah, just someone said thanks for love that it's nearly all vegetarian. I wondered if there was any reason for that, or what the best types of protein was another question.
Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about that in the balanced meals on the next slide. So I will hold that until I click the slide here. So here is a sample plate, and I'll get into why kind of that one was a little bit more of a vegetarian menu as we proceed through the presentation. But this is a snapshot of the new Canada's Food Guide. I borrowed this picture from them. And so we can see on this plate that we have it divided into different sections. Now you can buy a divided plate at the store if you're finding that you need a little bit of guidance as you begin to try out these principles. But here's kind of what we're looking for. We want at least half of our plate to be fruits and vegetables. You can see on the left there's lots of color. We've got the whole rainbow. Each one of those foods provides us with different chemicals. They're called phytochemicals, and they're really good, important chemicals for our body. They are things like beta carotene and anthocyanin. And these are polyphenols. These are all very long science words to say that they are antioxidants that help reduce our inflammation. So they give us lots of good vitamins, minerals, and then they have these anti-inflammation properties. Our fruits and vegetables also have lots of fiber in them, which can help when we're struggling with constipation. So we want to make sure half of our plate has those fruits and veggies. In the upper right-hand corner, we have our protein foods. And you can see that there's a variety there. We've got our meats, we have our egg, fish, and then we have our plant proteins. So we have almonds and chickpeas and other beans and tofu and lentils and walnuts. So we have a variety that we eat. You'll notice that out of the majority of those there, they are plant-based. in a way. They're not necessarily having, the whole quarter is not just meat. We want to make sure we are having some of those plant proteins as well. They give us all, again, those phytochemicals, and they give us some more fiber and a well-rounded type of food. A lot of the diet patterns that we study in nutrition show that eating plant proteins is beneficial for preventing chronic disease in general. The fish there and the walnuts are foods that are high in omega-3s, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well, which have really good anti-inflammatory properties. So that was the reason we chose to include salmon in the last one. Salmon's a really good one. Having canned salmon's easy. It's in the pantry, it's shelf stable. And then using those beans and having that plant protein in the evening. We also have in the bottom corner our grains and our starches. So we want to choose whole grains when we can. So we've got quinoa there, and brown rice, and whole wheat spaghetti, and whole wheat bread. So it doesn't have to be every single thing has to be whole wheat, but we want to have at least half of it in our day be whole wheat because of the extra nutrition that comes with it. On the right-hand side, we have making water our drink of choice. So we want to use that as our way to get good hydration and limiting the other beverages that we might want to drink. I'll just say one more thing overall here. The veggies and the whole grains give us a good amount of fiber, and fiber helps us keep those blood sugars nice and even as well. It helps our body digest things a little bit slower. We don't have a rapid spike in blood sugar, and it helps again with that constipation when paired with drinking a good amount of water.
I love the variety that you're showing here, and the amount of different textures and colors, and because I think so often we get stuck in what we eat is, in our habits and our routines, and I'm just noticing it's just a great reminder of all the possibilities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was yes. Oh, that was sorry. Best forms of protein went by. I think you've covered that. I was going to say, yeah, there was a question about raw food diet. I don't know if that's something you want to talk about now, or
let's save that one till the end.
Okay.
And we can touch on that one then. Yeah, that's more just about the types of food if we're going to cook them or not.
Yeah, right,
yeah,
right.
We can touch on that at the end. Yeah. Okay. Go on to the next slide here. My mouse. Okay, we're going to start another poll here. So which one of these is not a sign of dehydration? Let me get my poll up. Poll number 2. There we go. You can go ahead and answer that. So which one of these would not a sign of dehydration? So 3 of them are a sign of dehydration and 1 of them is not. Janelle, I can see your question in the Q&A, and I'll answer that in a second. I see it there now. Give you about 20 more seconds with the poll.
I really got stuck on this one.
Okay, I'm going to end it here. So this one's quite a bit of a tie here. Well, I guess it's not a tie, but it's fairly close with 2 of them. I'm going to share the results here. Okay, so you can all see that now. So looks like everyone knew that headache is a pretty common sign of dehydration. And then we have 3 others here. So we have hunger, pale yellow urine, and dry mouth. So the correct answer is pale yellow urine. That would be a sign that you are well hydrated. Your urine does not need to be clear to show that you're hydrated. It can be a pale yellow color. Anything darker than that can be a sign that you are dehydrated. So if it's quite an amber color or even darker than that, there's a concern. The one caveat with that is if you do take B vitamins as part of your supplement routine, your urine is going to be yellow because there's a B2 called riboflavin, does change the color of your urine. So That might be one little caveat to that. Hunger is also a sign of dehydration. And that is, can be that we actually experience hunger instead of thirst. So it comes all across in our body as that we're hungry right then, but it could be that we actually need something to drink. And then dry mouth is another common sign when we don't have enough water, enough fluids.
Is loose stool a sign of dehydration?
It might not necessarily be a sign of dehydration, but it could be a cause that then you lead to be dehydrated because we're losing a lot of fluid out of the bowels. Right. So we want to make sure that we're having rehydrating fluids after that. Right, let me just move my poll here. Okay, so I stay hydrated. So choosing water most often is the best way to maintain our hydration. Dehydration can increase our sensitivity to pain. I think that one of the question and answers wanted me to elaborate more on this. So here we go. When we have our water does a lot in our body for us. It helps move our nutrients around to where it needs to go, and it helps eliminate waste, both of which can influence our ability to heal and our pain. So when we have a buildup of waste in our body, we can experience that as pain. So we want to make sure we have a good amount of water to move everything where it needs to go and our kidneys to function properly to get everything out. Water can also have an effect on our levels of constipation. So a lot of medications that we can take for pain can lead to constipation, and we want to make sure we're getting enough water so that we don't kind of exacerbate that problem.
Right. That's pretty key, hey? That's a big one.
Yeah. So we need different amounts of water in the day depending who we are. 2 to 3 liters is a good guesstimate for the day. That's going to change if it's hot out. It's just going to change if you're doing a little bit more that day and moving around more often. They say for women about 9 cups of fluid a day and men about 12 cups. Now that doesn't mean that you have to drink all water for your 12 cups. There's some foods that give us fluid. So eating soups, things like yogurt, foods that are fluid-like and could be poured or spooned out are going to have some fluid for us as well. So one little tip is to grab a jug of water, like in this picture here, fill it up for the day, and then keep pouring it into your glass, or grab a really big water bottle, fill that, and decide that you're going to drink 2 of those in a day. Have it around wherever you are and sip on it throughout the day.
Any reason why not to drink carbonated water?
If you have reflux, I would be cautious with that.
Okay.
Other than carbonated water, I would also look and make sure that it doesn't have a lot of sodium. Some club sodas and carbonated water are high in sodium. So as long as on the nutrition facts label that's at 0, then that's totally fine.
Right.
There's lots of different ones out there, bubbly and Pellegrino and soda streams, but that should be fine. Okay, on to our next part of our checklist here. So I prepare most of my meals from whole foods. So I'm gonna just quickly, before we get into the whole foods and convenience foods, discuss what the word processed means. So a lot of times in nutrition, we hear about, we tell people to limit highly processed foods and to eat less processed foods. And so what does the word processed even mean when it comes to nutrition? So the processed foods in general means that the food has been changed from its original shape. So from picking an apple off of a tree, has something been done that it's different from what you're eating? Perhaps you're having applesauce, so that's a processed food. Perhaps you've sliced it up. You've technically processed that food. So what I'm going to talk about in this part of the checklist is foods that have been highly processed, meaning that they've had things added to them. They've had sugar and extra fats. They've really changed their shape from what they were to the food that you're eating. A less processed food means that there's been minimal steps. So if you bought frozen cut up green beans in the vegetable aisle, that technically is a processed food, but we're going to talk about that as a less processed food, meaning it's maintaining a lot of that nutrition and doesn't have some of the other additives. So highly processed foods, as we see on this slide, they can increase inflammation. And that's mainly because they are pretty high in sugar and they have a lot of them are high in saturated fat. So we know that these foods, high sugar, high saturated fat, can contribute to that inflammation and to that pain. They're also typically low in fiber. So they've been changed so much, and we've taken the food from what it was and gotten rid of a lot of the fibrous parts of it. So we lose some of the nutrients, and we lose some of that good fiber that we were kind of just talking about on the balanced meals too. We want that fiber for all of its goodness. Our unprocessed or less processed whole foods. So again, some of the things on the left here with our apples and our cherries and our watermelon, they are going to give us more of that, more water, higher in fiber. They're going to be lower in that saturated fat and higher in unsaturated fats. Unsaturated fats are the good fats that can help with inflammation. If you're looking at kind of, okay, well, do I eat a lot of highly processed foods or do I eat less processed foods? You can think about keeping a little journal for a couple of days and writing down what you have. One easy way to think about it is, does this food that I'm eating have a nutrition facts label? Anything that's been created in our food system needs to have a label on it. For example, if you went and got apples at the store, typically they don't have a label. If you go down the freezer aisle and you grabbed a frozen burrito, that would have a label on it. So that's kind of an easy way to differentiate. That's not always true. Some of our less processed foods like canned beans and canned tomatoes and canned veggies do have a nutrition facts label, but they're still considered a less processed food. So most of the time we want to use those less processed foods and use whole foods as often as we can. Here's a little example of foods that we can compare. What would be a highly processed version and what's a less processed version? So we see things like fruit juice candies compared to fruit, deli meats compared to home cooked meats, or the rotisserie chickens that we could maybe get at the store. And then chips and dip compared to having carrot sticks with hummus. Hummus also already a processed food, but it's less processed and has a lot of more nutrition to it. So using the chat room, I have a little activity for us. I want you to tell me which foods on this list out of either side would be high in fiber. Which ones might be high in fiber?
So just from the ones that are listed here, like the veggies or the meat.
Yeah, so we've got the hummus would have some fiber in it, the carrot sticks, the fruit. The granola might, depending on what it was made with. If it was made with the whole grain oats, it would depend on, again, what's in there. Great, veggie soup. That could be, depending on how many vegetables are in there. And the homemade stew as well with the root veggies. Root veggies are really fibrous, so that would give us a lot of good fiber. Great, sounds like you got most of them. Okay, we're gonna ask one more. Which of these would be high in vitamins and minerals? So which ones are gonna be really nutrient dense for our, what we call micronutrients? Yeah, so our fruits and veggies, absolutely. Our hummus and
Chips and dip is not making it to the chat box.
Neither is our deli meats.
Nope.
So we can see that a lot of the answers that you're giving me are mainly from that right-hand side. And this is not to say that you can never eat things on the left-hand side. We just want the ones on the right-hand side to be had more often. We want to include those, for 80% of our day, we're picking foods from the right. And when we need it, we might have something from the left. A canned vegetable soup can be a quick and easy meal at some points. We just want to make sure it does have lots of good veggies and that we pair it with something that's going to also be nutritious. Maybe a piece of whole wheat bread goes with it, with some hummus on it, for example. Okay. So the foods that are on our left-hand side typically end up having the more sugar, more salt, more fat, and less vitamins, minerals, and fiber than our fresh, less processed versions.
That's such a good point you made about, like pain medications causing constipation. And there's a lot we can, from what you're saying, we can do with nutrition around that, with fiber and water and to keep things flowing through.
Yeah, And I see there's a comment here about canned soup having so much sodium, and that is very true. There are versions out there now that you can buy that are low in sodium. Now, I should say they're lower in sodium. They typically still have quite a bit of sodium, but there's a blue label that you can see that will say lower in sodium, and those are a better version. The other option with that is to have your regular canned soup and add some water to it and split it into 2 meals. So what you would normally make, you're going to dilute it with some water and then have something else to eat with it. Maybe you pair that soup with hummus and veggies, and then you're going to have the rest of it later. So you're not getting all that sodium in one sitting. And I'll answer another question here. So sodium can lead to hypertension. It can have a risk factor for heart disease and heart health when we have too much of it. We're all genetically a little different, so some people can tolerate higher amounts of sodium than others, but hypertension specifically is a silent kind of disease. We don't know that it's happening unless we go get our blood pressure taken. So we just generally want to lower our total sodium intake. Our foods that we have that are convenience foods are typically really, really high in salt. And what I mean is that sometimes one serving or one can of soup is enough for our entire day. So we really want to make sure that we watch our sodium, and eating our whole foods, our less processed foods, will have less sodium anyway. Great. Okay.
Right.
So
There's a lot of really good tips coming in, but they're just coming to the panelists. So I just want to say, if you want to share your tips with other people, it would be so helpful. Anyway.
And so I see one more question here. I think it was just to the panelists, was about should those of us who have very low blood pressure still be diluting sodium? And the answer is check with your doctor. Sometimes we do need extra salt to keep our water up, to keep our blood pressure high, but I would just double check with your doctor first to say, like, should I be not worrying about my sodium intake? Typically, you can eat sodium if you have low blood pressure. Okay. All right, so the next one of our checklist here is I plan ahead for flare-ups. So at the very beginning, when we talked about the relationship between pain and nutrition and how nutrition can affect pain, quite a few of you mentioned that there's those moments where it's really hard to cook and really difficult to want to get up and be in the kitchen and making something. So here's a few things that we can do to help us plan for those moments. So the first one is having those easy to prepare foods on hand. So we can go and get freezer items. So we can get frozen vegetables that will be really easy to throw in a frying pan and make a stir fry. We can buy canned veggies and canned lentils and canned beans that are nice and quick and easy to open up and toss into something. As we were just talking about with soups, maybe you find a low sodium canned soup that is just easily reheated and a piece of toast in the toaster to make a meal. We can have frozen fruit, so frozen berries or other frozen fruits that we could easily make into a smoothie. That's going to give us some good nutrition. Use that frozen spinach and some frozen mango and a protein powder, and you've got 3 different types of food, and you've got a little bit of a meal there. Things like yogurt, eggs, peanut butter, canned salmon, those like that, having those on hand can make it easier in those moments. Maybe we hard boil the eggs early in the week and have them to pair with some veggies as a quick little snack. Making extra servings and freezing them. If you have crock pots at home or big, stock pots, on a day that you're feeling well, making a big batch of a tortilla soup or chicken noodle soup or something that you really enjoy that you can make a lot of and freeze in small portions. So in those days where cooking is difficult, you can go in and pull one of those out. I often counsel a lot of my clients, to always cook more than you need and freeze a meal. So, once, over 7 days, you might put 3 extra meals in the freezer. And now in another week, you've got 3 meals ready to go. So if you are cooking one day, always make a little extra and put it away for later. I'll say that not all foods freeze super well, but the ones that do, make a little extra.
We often talk about planning for flare-ups in a lot of our groups, but I haven't talked about planning for, how do you cook and how do you eat during flare-ups. So this is really helpful for not just planning for how you look after yourself, but planning ahead for food.
Absolutely. Meal delivery services. So I wanted to mention this one because it seems to be a growing industry in our food delivery systems. There's lots of different delivery services specifically in the Okanagan, and then ones that are a little more international. So one is the meal delivery kits. So they send you everything you need to make the meal. Everything's pre-portioned. You don't need to go into the store and make sure you have all the ingredients. It comes, they give you the recipe. Takes less than 30 minutes to put that together. There's quite a few out there. There's HelloFresh, there's Fresh Prep, Chef's Plate, Make Good Food. They usually offer discounts when you try it for the first time. So if that's something that might be helpful, you can buy 2 meals for the week, and then you have a couple of things that are already planned out for you. The other option are some local ones are people that make the meals and they deliver them ready to eat. So there's one called Pioneer's Plate. There's one called Urban Jars Kelowna, where they prep breakfast and lunches and dinners in these little mason jars, and they deliver them to you for the week. I think if anyone knows of any other ones that are in Kelowna, go ahead and mention them in the chat there. Those are a few that I know off the top of my head. That can be something that you lean on a week that might be extra busy and you're a little bit nervous about having the energy that you need to cook.
Yeah, what were the 2 that you just mentioned, Joelle? Could you just say them again? I'll pop them in the chat.
So one is called Pioneer's Plate, and they make plant-based meals. So they're going to have most of your plant foods. And the other one is called Urban Jars.
Okay, I've never heard of that one.
That is an international company, but there's they have like local franchises. And so there's one here in Kelowna. I think there's another one called Meal Prep for You. I think that they're local in Kelowna too.
Okay. And I see some other suggestions going by as well. So awesome.
Yeah. So that's a way to kind of plan ahead for the service. Who do you have accounts signed up with these places, and can you quickly order something to come for you to help that out? Asking for help. If there's family or friends that know that you're having, have those moments where things are difficult, that you can rely on to say, hey, do you mind going and bringing me dinner tonight? Or are you able to pick up these 3 items from the grocery store for me that you can make a quick and easy meal? Then last one is keeping our ingredients around for really simple meals. So I think I saw a few ideas go by. One was, I think, we had walnuts and raisins and veggies, and that's great. I call them snack plates, where you just pair a few things together to make a meal. Again, maybe you have some snap peas and some hummus and a hard-boiled egg and cheese and crackers and walnuts. You've got a few different types of foods. That's a good meal. Doesn't even have to be that many types of foods. Could be a piece of toast with peanut butter and banana on it. I think I saw someone with that with rice cakes. So we don't have to make a huge elaborate, the plate that I showed you earlier doesn't have to be a full divided plate with exactly rice and baked chicken and sweet potatoes and broccoli. It can be something as simple as maybe some fruit and some yogurt and some nuts on top. That's still a meal. We're still going to count it.
Simple is sometimes better. Simple is good.
Yes.
In my books.
Exactly. There's a resource that I'll show you at the end, but it's called Unlock Food, is a website based through Dietitians of Canada, and they have some links for some quick and easy meals. So they'll give you some, if you're looking for some of those quick, easy to prepare meal ideas, there's some on there.
Great.
Okay. All right, we're going to go into our next and last poll here. So we're moving into about caffeine and sugar. So which one of these contains caffeine? Just gonna get my poll going here. There we go. And I want to speak to a question that I meant to answer earlier while you vote of which drink contains caffeine. Is about recommendations for those that are severely allergic to nuts, seeds, beans, legumes. So that limits the plant protein options. And that absolutely does limit the plant protein options. If soy is not one of those allergies, there are a few options for that. Edamame beans are high in protein. They come in little shells. Tofu, there's also foods called soy curls that are, you can buy them at a few stores in town. One's called chickpeas and the other one's downtown here in Kelowna. And you just, they're dehydrated. So you put them in hot water or stock, and then you fry them up. And their texture is similar to like strips of chicken. So if soy is an option, then there's a few good plant protein sources that way. But severe allergies, and we need to limit that, we can opt for those other leaner cuts of meat. So our chicken, having our fish, our fatty fish specifically, going for those that are still going to be nutrient rich without a lot of saturated fat. So I hope I answered that question. Okay, I'm going to get back to the poll here, and I'm going to close this. And I'm going to share the results here. So looks like quite a few of you selected green tea, and green tea is the drink that contains caffeine. Herbal teas typically do not. So if you see that it's an herbal tea, you're pretty safe to figure that it doesn't have caffeine. Always double check the label and always ask if you're not sure. And be cautious with some herbal teas depending on what medications you take. Ginger ale typically does not have caffeine as well. It's one of the pops that does not. Root beer, Coca-Colas, Pepsi typically have caffeine in them. And as we know, water does not have caffeine. So we can have that as much as we want.
Are there specific herbal teas to watch out for that you're thinking about, or you just gotta be careful?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, and it depends on different medication interactions. So if it's something that you have quite often, make sure that you mention it to your pharmacist.
Right.
There's some, it's more of the like blends where we have a bunch of different types of roots mixed in that can be some of the natural medicine databases. Be careful with.
Right.
Yeah, typically a rooibos or chamomile is fairly safe. All right. Okay, so the next part of our checklist is I don't rely on sugar and caffeine for energy. As we mentioned at the beginning, when we lose the sleep from pain, we can want to reach for those foods that are going to give us that quick energy. Our body in an energy deprived state wants carbohydrate foods and it wants sugar. It's our fastest source of energy. It gets into our bloodstream quickly and it can fuel our body. What we want to do is make sure that we're still eating balanced and still eating often and not just relying on these for our energy. So we're going to go through some sources. We'll go back here. So our simple sugars can be found in multiple different foods. They get really, really quickly absorbed and can leave you feeling sluggish and tired soon after eating them. So here's a whole long list. So from fruit juices to sugary cereals, things like Fruit Loops. Yeah, they can have a lot of that extra sugar. Sweetened beverages, chocolate milk has a lot of sugar added to it. Pops have lots of them. Lemonades, iced teas can as well, depending on what you're buying. So those are some sources of our simple sugars. And then we have our sources of caffeine. So our coffee, our tea, a few different types of tea there. Pop, our energy drinks, and chocolate is also a source of caffeine. So just be cautious if you're having hot chocolate or eating different chocolate foods. That to say, with all these foods here on the slide, it doesn't mean that we can never have them. If we want to have some of those simple sugars, so say we want to add some maple syrup to something for sweetness, that's okay as long as we're having other foods with it. So the impact of that quickly absorbed sugar is a lot lower if we have it with foods that are digested slowly. So if we come back to that fiber in foods, and fiber helps us digest things a little bit slower. So if we're having oatmeal and we're having peanut butter in it and we want to sprinkle a little bit of brown sugar on top, that would be okay because we're having a whole bunch of food there that's going to digest as a meal.
We're not going for perfection.
Yeah, in between
we're allowed a little bit of sugar.
Exactly. We just have a chocolate chip cookie, our blood sugars might go up quickly. Maybe we have a little bit of a snack, maybe a handful of trail mix, and then our cookie. So that trail mix has some other types of foods in there, has other types of nutrients. So it has some fat, has some protein. So the sugar in that cookie won't be absorbed as quickly. So it's about pairing it with other things and having that balance.
I had two questions that I just didn't want to let them pass too quickly. The first one was, is it possible to have too much fruits and vegetables because of the sugar in them, the sugar content?
No. Having our fruits and vegetables, again, if you're having the whole fruit, you're getting the fiber in it, you're getting lots of other things that are with it. If we have just fruit, like say we had just had a fruit salad, then yeah, we are going to have quite a bit of sugar in there. So we want to make sure that we're, again, pairing our fruits with other things. I don't like, I like to keep fruits and veggies, though they are the ones we need the most. And I don't want you to be nervous about eating them because of the sugar content. They already come packaged nicely with those other types of nutrients that they're really good to have.
Right.
Again,
And it's hard to
as
eat
with all
too many
foods,
of them.
Yeah, I mean, it would be difficult to eat 6 bananas in one sitting.
Mhm.
You could probably do it, but it might be nicer to have it, again, on a piece of toast or wrapped up in a tortilla
Right.
or with some peanut butter slathered on top.
Yeah, like the variety sounds key.
Yes.
A question about juice that just came in that I also was wondering about. And just as another question I don't want to forget is about metabolism and boosting metabolism. I don't know if that comes in here. Or...
So the juice, we can talk about that one quickly, and then we can get to the metabolism question. So juice, if we think about what we need to make a cup of juice, so even if it's pure fruit juice, so if we have half a cup of orange juice, it might take 6 to 8 oranges to make that 1 cup of juice. And typically we wouldn't sit and eat 6 to 8 oranges in one sitting because that's quite a lot. We eat the fiber, we eat the flesh of the fruit. It's quite voluminous if we think about like 6 big oranges. But when we just take the juice out of it, we take all the sugar and we leave all that other stuff behind. So again, we're removing the fiber, we're losing some of the other good stuff that comes with it. So we want to limit our pure fruit juice. Again, if we're putting it, say, a little bit into a smoothie to flavor our smoothie, that's going to have kale and spinach and some flaxseed and some other nutrients at the same time. It's okay to have a little bit of fruit juice, but it's not something that we want to drink as our main source of a beverage that we have often. It's fairly high in sugar and lower in that fiber that, again, helps with keeping our blood sugars maintained.
Right,
there's a question here quickly that I'll answer to you about bananas causing constipation. It depends on how ripe the banana is. If your banana is unripe, it has more of more fiber that will help move your stool. And if it's really ripe, it may cause more constipation. So it depends on how ripe your banana is.
Oh, okay.
But
I did not know
typically,
that.
it is a food that we use to slow down the bowels. So it typically does, but it depends on how ripe it is.
Okay, that's a great question. Mm-hmm.
And then what was the question about the metabolism?
Oh, foods that boost metabolism.
So yeah, there aren't specific foods that can help boost our metabolism necessarily. Our metabolism is based on a number of different things. We burn energy by digesting our food. We have our non-exercise energy, where what we do by just sitting, our body just working to maintain our life. We have the movement and what we burn for that. So to change, the output in that sense is not something that one food can do. I would say that, again, as we've talked about multiple times here, just having the different balance of different types of foods. And that way we're also feeding our microbiome, which is all the bacteria that lives in our gut. And that can be more helpful than a food that specifically boosts our metabolism and speeds up how our body burns off energy.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Awesome.
Okay. So I'm going to quickly answer this one too. There's alcohol and pain. Alcohol is a beverage that doesn't give us much nutrition. It just kind of gives us some calories from it. There's not other nutrients that we get from alcohol. And alcohol can cause us to be a little more dehydrated. So when we drink alcohol, there's some transporters in our kidneys that aren't able to reabsorb our water as easily. So we lose more water when we drink alcohol. So one, we're not necessarily getting any nutrition from what we're having. And two, even though we're getting calories, and two, we're losing some extra water. So that could cause, a few hours from then, it could cause a little bit more pain. It could cause, because of the dehydration. Again, everything in moderation. As we talked about, having a little bit of sugar. If you want to have a drink every once in a while, we just want to make sure that we do limit that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go on to the next one here. Just keeping an eye on the time. We're already at 7 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So our next one here is about meds, vitamins, and supplements. And there's a few questions that have come throughout. So I think some of them might be answered in this slide. So one, before I mention anything about what we're going to take for meds, vitamins, supplements, please ask your doctor or pharmacist. This is not recommendations that I'm making specifically for any of you. I don't know what you're taking. I don't know any of that other details about your specific story. So please make sure you ask your doctor and pharmacist. Here are some common supplements that have been shown to be helpful for people living with chronic pain. So one is turmeric. There's been some studies specifically done on turmeric related to pain and neuropathic pain. So there is really good evidence to suggest that having it is a benefit in reducing our inflammation, which causes that pain. One thing is that it might cause some GI upset and it might cause some bleeding. So again, this is something that you need to make sure you run by your medical team first. That being said, you don't have to always have it as a supplement form. You could use it as a spice. So you can put a half a teaspoon into a smoothie. You can mix it into your oatmeal or the rice that you're cooking. It's very colorful and it kind of has that vibrant yellow color, which is pleasing to our eyes and has really good anti-inflammatory properties. So you can include that in what you're making or consider taking a supplement of that. The next one is omega-3s. I know there was a question about that in the chat. And so if we can't get enough sources from food, taking an omega-3 supplement has shown in some studies to be beneficial for reducing pain after, oh, hold on one second. Just gonna give my husband a glare there because he was watching TV and paused it.
He got the evil eye.
Back on. Okay, so omega-3s is something that we can take and can be beneficial after taking it for 3 months at a time. There's inconsistent kind of evidence about how much to take, and it does depend on how old you are and if you're male or female. So we want to make sure that we are getting an omega-3 that has EPA and DHA. Those are two different types of omega-3s. So we want to make sure that whatever supplement we take has both those things. The next one here is vitamin D. And I put this one on here. There's not a lot of good research specifically for vitamin D and treating pain, but vitamin D can often be a deficiency that we experience, specifically in the winter where we live. We can make vitamin D from the sun, but in the wintertime, we cannot. Where we live and the latitude of the earth, we can't synthesize it in our skin. And it's not in that many foods. It's in dairy products, fortified, and it's in things like salmon, but there's not a lot of food sources of vitamin D. So I typically recommend that most of my clients take vitamin D in the wintertime and prevent that deficiency from happening in the first place. It's something that is fairly low risk. But again, check with your doctor and pharmacist about what might be the right amount for you.
Great. There was a question about nerve pain from Paul. Do you know, I was thinking about the omega-3 or anything specifically for nerve pain that you know of, Joelle?
I don't know anything like specific research for that. Yeah, I'd say that like what I found about the turmeric was actually more related to nerve pain and
That was
neuropathic
turmeric,
pain.
you said. Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
that's what you said. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a study in rats. It wasn't very well done in humans. That's the one thing with nutrition. When we do studies, they're observational studies.
Yeah.
So they just look at kind of a population. We can't do really good high evidence studies because we can't tell one person that they can't have this nutrient and then experiment on someone else.
Right.
So it's really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really difficult to have really, really solid.
Mm-hmm.
But that one, again, turmeric is something you could discuss because that has shown some benefit and it might be worth trying.
I've heard a lot about turmeric and like a cancer fighting food as well. Spice.
Yeah, and antioxidant, anti-inflammatory food. Yeah. So those are, I see a note about D2 or D3. D3 would be my recommendation. The other recommendation is to have it in a liquid form. So we can take it in pill form or we can take it in liquid in a fat. And the fat is how we absorb the vitamin D. So if we take it in the fat form, we should be able to get more of it than if we take it in a little tablet.
Okay. Turmeric lattes. Okay.
Okay, so here's inflammation in food. I think this was something that there was a few questions about ahead of time. So here's the best summary I can come up with. We could do an entire talk on inflammation in food and talk about tons of different things, but I'm going to summarize it here. So our pro-inflammatory foods are ones that we want to limit and reduce in our diet. These are foods with excess added sugar. So for example, if we bought a store-bought double chocolate chip muffin, that might have some excess added sugar. Foods that are refined carbohydrates, refined meaning that they've been changed and they're more of the white foods. So white breads, white pastas, things like that. And then our omega-6 fatty acids. Omega-6 fatty acids are in the oils that our food system typically uses. So in our packaged and processed, highly processed foods, there's usually a lot of omega-6 oils in there. So when we think about what we normally eat in the North America, we have a high amount of omega-6 and a low amount of omega-3s. What we want to do is we want to get that ratio changed. We want to have more omega-3s and less omega-6. So that's typically in like safflower oils and other things. It's not something that you would be putting on your food. It's something that's already in the food that we're eating from the store. So our anti-inflammatory foods are ones that are high in antioxidants. So that's all of our fruits and vegetables. Our omega-3 fatty acids. So the foods that are high in that is our fatty fish. So our salmon and mackerel, sardines, trout. The mackerel and sardines are ones that we can buy at the store in little cans that come with lots of different flavors. Really nice shelf-stable fish option rather than something that's frozen. Walnuts are high in omega-3s, flaxseed or flaxseed oil. Olive oil as our staple oil that we use every day for cooking and on salads and anything like that. That gives us the best nutrient profile for an oil that we're going to use. And then our spices. So as we talked about, using turmeric, using cinnamon, things like that can have anti-inflammatory effects for us. As we think about diet patterns, the really well-studied ones in nutrition is the Mediterranean diet for its anti-inflammatory, preventing chronic disease properties. And it follows this kind of pattern where we're eating our fruits and vegetables, we're eating plant proteins, we're having fish often, we're eating red meat and processed meats like sausages and pepperonis a lot less. And we're using olive oil as our staple oil. And then if you know the Mediterranean diet well, you'll know that they once in a while have a glass of red wine. So speaking back to the alcohol, there's a little space for it for pleasure and socialization, and in the Mediterranean diet for health as well.
Right. A couple of people asking about coconut oil. I've kind of wondered about that too. Yeah.
So coconut oil became quite popular because of how it's made up compared to butter and compared to other saturated fats. So coconut oil is a saturated fat. It just has a different breakdown where some of it is a medium chain fat. It's quite a long kind of discussion about how that actually changes how we absorb it and use it in the body. But what I usually say is I want you to use it as you would butter, and use it only in moderation, and use your olive oil and other oils that are liquid at room temperature. So if we compare like avocado oil and olive oil that are liquid sitting on your counter to coconut oil and butter that sit and they're solid, those are the ones we want to limit, and we want to include the liquid ones most often.
Okay, good tip. Yeah.
That means that we have more unsaturated fats in them if they're liquid room temperature. Yeah. All right. So pain and food access. This is something that is super important to touch base on and talk about, because pain can change our ability to work, and it can change the finances that we have to buy food and eat food. Pain can change how we're able to go get food, how we're able to cook food and make food. And it's something that we can't forget in this whole entire thing. We can talk about, optimizing this specific food, but having access to it in the first place can be difficult. So there are a few resources that I want to mention about accessing food. HealthLink BC is a website that you can go to, and they have a link from there to a government tool about eating on a budget. So if accessing food from a financial standpoint is difficult, there's some good resources that we have for eating on a budget and finding foods that are going to be really nutritious, but also wallet friendly. And then on that website, there's lots of other different handouts as well that we can talk to about in the resources. But I just want to acknowledge that accessing food can be difficult and there are resources out there. I'm not sure if the Pain Clinic has, I can, connect with them too about that and say that there's other local places in Kelowna that we can use to access good, nutritious food as well. There's the May Bennett meal program. There's always the food bank. So there's a few places that we can go to access that food if finances are difficult.
What was the what was the website there? Oh, sorry, somebody put it in for me. Thank you. HealthLink BC.
BC.
Yeah.
So you can just Google that. It has lots of health information.
Okay.
And if you specifically ask for food and nutrition in your search, it will come back with a lot of different categories: healthy eating, eating on a budget, antioxidants in your diet, meal planning. It's a few good ones.
Okay, that's helpful. I did see two questions go by about prunes earlier as well. So just getting back to food for a sec. Why do dry prunes have more sugar? Are prunes a good way to cure constipation? I think was the other question.
So I'll answer the first one about the sugar. So when we take any fruit and we take out the water, so we dehydrate it, we take that part out, all that sugar that was in those juices in that fruit is now condensed into that small amount of the dried fruit that we're eating. So it has the same amount of sugar as a regular prune, but we have a bigger amount that we're getting compared to the smaller prune. So we could eat more dehydrated prunes than we can real prunes, if that makes sense. So we end up eating more sugar that way.
It's more concentrated, I guess. You eat
yeah.
more and that makes sense.
And prunes and pears are two that are really good for constipation. Prunes and pears naturally have a chemical or compound called sorbitol. And sorbitol in our gut has this water pulling effect. So it brings water into our bowels, which then helps soften up our stools. So pear nectar, prune nectar, eating dried prunes can all be beneficial just because of what's naturally found in them. Yeah. Okay.
So I just want to say we're 7:15. How are you? Just wanted to let you know the time, Joelle, if you're still okay to keep going and maybe check a few questions later.
2 more slides here that we'll go through. This is kind of just what do we do now with the information and then some resources. And then I can stay on for a few more minutes after that to answer questions. If anyone else needs to go, then they can go.
Great.
Okay. Thank you. So where to start? So I've given you quite a bit of information. We've got a checklist for healthy eating. We learned a lot about different types of foods, balancing our plate. So the first step is to just bring awareness to what you're currently doing. Celebrate the successes. What are you already doing well? What areas might you feel that you want to work on? Maybe doing a little bit of a journal is helpful. What you're eating, what symptoms you're experiencing, what medications you're taking, just gathering some information about what's going well for you right now and where are the challenging. Maybe it's a time of day that's challenging. Maybe making breakfast is really hard, but dinner's okay. So just again, what are you currently doing? And then with the checklist that I had at the very beginning, pick one item off that checklist. Maybe it's that you want to work on being hydrated. So you're going to grab that jug and you're going to pour that water and you're going to work on that first. Maybe you decide that you want to work on balancing your plate and making half of it vegetables. So pick one place to start and work on that one. When we try to do too many things, we often don't do all of them as successfully as we could if we just picked one. And then follow the 3 Ps. So plan, prepare, and pack. So do your best to plan ahead. Maybe it's not for the week, maybe it's for the next meal. Maybe you can prepare something for the future, for 5 weeks from now when you need something out of the freezer. And then packing the foods that we need. When we go places, bringing something that we can have for a snack or a meal. If we're out and about, packing what we need for our day.
I like the idea of keeping it simple, like picking one thing to work on. And already you guys might already know of one thing that's sticking out for you, your one step. And also the planning, it doesn't have to be for the whole week, but I know today I remembered to put my oats in the fridge and soak them. so that I can have breakfast, like soaked oats in the morning. And I haven't done that for ages, but it must have been because I was thinking about tonight. And it's just one small thing that can make a difference for the next day.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be something huge. It can be something small that you're planning ahead for. You might be chopping the vegetables for dinner tonight in the morning, something like that. Those are great examples, Madeline. So here's a list of some resources for you. I mentioned earlier the Unlock Food website. So this one has different handouts for quick and easy meal ideas. It has a variety of information from dietitians that you can look to. It has lunch ideas, dinner ideas, breakfast ideas, different things like that. It can link you to even some places to find some recipes. If there's quite a few on there as well, but you might look for something for some fun new ideas that fit within what you're able to do. HealthLink BC, we just mentioned before, that one's on there too, with a few of the different topics that you can find there. If you're looking for something a little more personal and you want to work one-on-one with a dietitian, there's a few different databases that you can go to find someone that might fit what you're looking for. Currently with the pandemic, a lot of dietitians in BC are offering virtual services. So you might want to look and see, through the whole province, who are you actually feeling that you really want to connect with and work with one-on-one? So find a dietitian by Dietitians of Canada has a database and you can search by location. And there's also one called BC Dietitians. Those are all specific to British Columbia. There's different profiles on there, so you can look and see. Dietitians usually typically have an area of focus that they practice within, so you can see kind of what different options there are out there. And then the last one is coming soon. We will have a primary care network here in Kelowna that wrap around GP's offices. So your family physician might have a dietitian that works within them. And so that might be something that you can seek one-on-one counseling that way. So that wouldn't be down probably until April, May, but it is coming.
Okay, that's that's good to know.
Yeah, so those are kind of some resources for you. And on to the question and answer. I feel like there's a few people that might be signing off, which is great. And if there are questions that I don't know if I can get to all of them here. So
much information. Oh my goodness. And don't forget, everybody, this is recorded. So you will get a copy of the recording, and we are going to have to do this again, I think, because already, so much good discussion. I have one question that's popped up in the chat a couple of times, Joelle, who, if I can ask that, and then before we go to the Q&A questions.
Yeah, for sure.
It was around evening snacks, and then somebody just asked, the time. There's questions about the evening, like the time between supper and or last time you eat and bedtime.
Yeah, so I would say that one is dependent on the person. There's some misinformation out there about not eating after a certain time, so don't eat after 7 p.m. And I would say you have to kind of lean into what you're feeling. And if you have hunger signals, if you feel lightheaded, headache, hunger pangs, and you want to eat something, then you can eat it at any time until you go to bed.
Okay.
Some people's digestive system really slows down overnight. So if you were to eat late, you might notice that you don't feel well and don't sleep well because your body's kind of diverting attention away and your food is not really digesting. Other people don't have that. So it's based on genetics. So really, again, use your intuition and feel, am I hungry and do I need this food? And how did I sleep well at that after eating that?
That's great advice. I've heard both, don't eat after 6 o'clock, and, then, have some cheese before you go to bed, and it gets confusing. What are we supposed to be doing? Pay attention to, we're all different, I guess, is the answer.
We are all different. Yeah. Yeah. And if you notice that hunger is not something you ever experience, if you have a low appetite, anyway, then I would say, probably try to eat at least an hour before bedtime. Let your body do some of that digesting before you go to sleep.
Yeah. Awesome. Night snacks.
Yeah. So
anything in particular?
I would say, again, whatever you're having, pair it with more than one type of food. Try and have a protein food. So for example, you might have an apple with peanut butter, you might have mixed nuts and popcorn, you might have cheese and crackers. Those are a few off the top of my head. We want if we have fruits, veggies, grains, protein foods, dairy as our 5 kind of categories, pick 2 of those and make sure that one of them has a source of protein.
Okay.
Typically, when you're pairing more than one, you will have some source of protein there.
Okay. Yeah. That answers that question. I've always wondered about that too, about protein, because I've also heard that. Should one avoid? Oh, I missed it now. Tomatoes, was it? Tomatoes and peppers. Do they cause more inflammation or?
Tomatoes and peppers, as those ones are typically under the nightshade family. So that one's talked about for kind of a different reason, for as a food trigger. So potatoes, I think mushrooms, tomatoes, peppers, eggplant fall under this family, this category of plants. So for some people, those can be bothersome and they can be inflammation causing. Other people, they find that it doesn't. So I would say, again, it kind of is up to how you're feeling. If you feel that you start to feel unwell after eating those foods, take them out for a while, see how you feel, and then you slowly introduce them back in and see if that's okay for you. They do have lots of good nutrition in them too, and antioxidants, but for some people they can be provoking.
Awesome. Joelle, do you want to just quickly glance at the Q&A and see what, because I know some of those questions have been waiting patiently. If I'm not sure which ones we probably covered.
So roasted nuts are absolutely okay. Just make sure that they're not over salted. You want to keep them lower sodium. So lightly salted if you're going to have them salted at all. The raw food diet, I didn't get to that one. So some foods are more beneficial when you do cook them. For example, if you cooked things that contain a chemical called lycopene, our body can absorb it easier. So I wouldn't say that raw food, eating all foods raw, is going to be more nutritionally superior to having foods that are cooked. Okay. The other thing with that is raw food, we don't actually get to really heat or have things that are warm, particularly in our winter. Warming foods can actually be beneficial for us in more ways than just the nutrition. It can be calming and comforting, as we were talking earlier about, in those moments of extreme pain, we need comfort foods. So there isn't a lot of good to say that eating completely raw is going to be miles ahead in nutrition. So I would say a mix of things is good. Have your raw vegetables, have your salads, things like that, but it's okay to cook foods too.
Okay. I love warm foods.
Yeah. And one thing we don't, when we cook vegetables and fruits, we don't want to boil them because we lose a lot of the nutrition. We want to steam them, bake them, roast them, things like that.
Right.
Okay. Answered that one. Turmeric does not require pepper to activate it for its nutritional benefit. It's in the turmeric itself.
Okay.
I did look up for this question about collagen on arthritis, and it has been shown to have in some studies and things, benefit for osteoarthritis. And I think the question that came through ahead of time was about some potential side effects of it, and there aren't well-known side effects. One would just be some gastrointestinal upset, but there's not any other large risks of taking it. Collagen is one supplement for a lot of people right now take for skin and aging skin. So it's fairly low risk, and you can see if it is beneficial for joint pain by taking it. Okay. Try it out for a few weeks.
Because it sure does seem to be, these things come and go, and that one seemed all of a sudden it became very popular. So that's good to know.
So if you don't like fish, taking an omega supplement is a good idea. You can also get omega from things like walnuts and flaxseed oil and flax seeds and hemp seeds and chia seeds. So there are quite a few plant-based sources that you can get it from, but a supplement is also an easy solution. I don't know, there's questions about foods as a relaxant. I don't know if there's a ton of, I don't know specific foods that would be acting as a relaxant, but I would say what's really important is making sure that you're well hydrated. So you want to keep your muscles hydrated if you're feeling that they're really tight all the time. I can't think of any, I don't know a lot about foods as far as relaxant and muscle tension. So So I can't answer that one, but definitely the hydration.
Right. Yeah, I also find Angela says a chamomile or warm milk. Sometimes it feels warm and relaxing. You know, I don't know if there's research behind it, but it sure feels relaxing.
I don't know if there's research behind it, but it would be something that I could look up on our natural medicines database and see if there's some benefit to that one. We did a lot of intermittent fasting. So if we're having smoothies and you're blending something to get the extra nutrients, smoothies are a great way to get a few different types of foods and get your fruits and vegetables. So put in your frozen fruits, throw in spinach, kale, you can even hide carrots in there. Put in something that's going to flavor it. Maybe you use a little bit of vanilla yogurt or use some protein, or you put some peanut butter or nut butter. But within using all those different types of foods, you're really getting a nutrient dense drink. That's going to be kind of a good meal replacement.
It's a good way to start the day too, if you're not a breakfast person, to throw everything into a blender and get all your vegetables before 9 o'clock.
Yeah. And there was one little tip I don't think I read out when we're planning and preparing ahead is when you're cooking, to keep a chair in the kitchen. So if you're, it doesn't have to be where you stand and do everything and then you're done. Take breaks, sit down. You don't have to, be in there and really cause more pain by standing for long periods of time. You can do little bits as you go.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much more time, if you want to take, say, like 2 more.
I think I got through most of them. Some of these are comments as well.
Yeah, I'm assuming a diet for lupus would also be along the lines of what we've been talking about, inflammation and the anti-inflammatory foods.
Yes. Yeah. And those, a lot of the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant foods are going to be beneficial for all those type of chronic diseases.
Right.
Yeah. There's one other one here about stevia and monk fruit. So I'll just answer these about sugar. So monk fruit and stevia are sugar substitutes. They do not contain sugar, but they are sweet. So stevia is from a plant. I believe monk fruit is as well. They're not ones that are kind of man-made, manufactured ones, just like sucralose and some of the other fake sugars are. So again, any of those are safe to use, even the ones that are artificially made in small amounts. We don't want to be having a lot of them. The caution with that is that when we have some of those ones that taste really, really sweet, what happens is that our taste buds get used to something really sweet. So we try and mimic that again the next time we eat something. So I would say, yes, you can use it as a substitute, just use as little as you need to get that flavor.
Right. That makes sense. I never thought about that. When you get used to sweet, you want sweet. You get kind of habituated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we've about covered it there. Was there anything else you're seeing?
I'll just answer this one back to Angela about collagen. I didn't see anything about growth of bone spurs or osteophytes with collagen use. Double check with your doctor, but when I looked up on the professional monograph of the natural medicines, there was nothing about that.
Okay, thanks for doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think we must be close to 7:30.
It's 7:30 now.
Wow. What a wealth of information. I can see it, it's kind of spurred lots of conversation and lots of comments. I have picked up so many things I didn't know before, and also reminders of things that I kind of knew, but, have forgotten. So I really, really want to thank you, Joelle. You are just, a wealth of information. And I'm hoping that, I hope that you'll join us again, kind of on a, every, say, couple of months, because there'll be more questions coming up. And even just to go just through review, what we talked about tonight, just to keep those reminders going of all those changes that we can make in our lives right now that are going to affect our physical health.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
just
should,
that, this it's helpful for everyone, even not those, even for people who aren't in pain. Um, but very like very healthy tips.
mhm.
But it's also stuff that I had no idea about. So
Yeah, and it's always changing. Nutrition is constantly evolving. So, in 6 months' time, we might have some new things we can talk about and some new
yeah.
ideas, and
I
information.
imagine it must be a challenging field to stay on because there's always new supplements and new ideas and new research.
Yeah, yeah,
So
new ways of eating.
and new ways of eating and so many ideas out there coming at us. It's hard to know, which one is going to be right for us. So, but I've heard you say a few times to really listen to yourself and your own intuition and
Yeah.
because everybody is different. There's research that pertains to everybody, but we all have different bodies.
And I take an intuitive eating approach in my practice. So we talk about a lot of different aspects of our nutrition. So our hunger and our fullness and what is satisfying, what foods actually leave us feeling satisfied, and what foods are pleasurable, and making sure that we have all of those within our day. And that, we're also looking at the nutrition of things, but let's talk about, what we actually need right now. What is our body telling us that we need? When are we done eating? And, what does eating a plate of roasted veggies and a small amount of fish and a small amount of brown rice make us feel better than eating a cheeseburger? So how does that leave us feeling? So we talk a lot
Right.
about getting our cues from internal rather than the external world that's telling us this is what you need to eat, this is what you need to do, only eat this much, measure this out. Like, let's listen to what our body wants.
I love that. I love that. Cut down on the noise out there and listen to what's happening in here. What truly feels right. And our bodies are amazing source of wisdom.
Yeah,
Around.
they sure are.
So thank you everybody who attended tonight, and thanks for all your participation, your questions and comments, and also helping each other. Lots of tips that I'm going to go back and look at again. You will get a recording. And Joelle, once again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again in probably, hopefully 2 months' time. We'll check in again around this.
That sounds great. I look forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Take care, everyone.
Good night, everyone.